Welcome to part 2 of the tutorial on MATLAB Grader, where I will show you how to set up an assessment question on the Grader platform and then create a course, finally showing you how to enroll learners and invite them to solve the assignment. So it's a fairly simple process and a systematic one. The first step is to go to this URL grader.mathworks.com, and for your information, I'm using a MacBook Pro, and the browser that I'm using is Safari. Of course, you can try it out with Firefox or your own favorite browser. The interface when you go to this website looks as I show on the screen here, and you will be asked to sign in. As I mentioned earlier, you sign in with your MathWorks account, which is typically your institute's email address. And that is what I'm going to do. So I have my email address here. And then you put in your password, sign in, which then will take you to this interface of this screen here. The screen that exactly appears depends on whether you were logged in with Grader earlier or not, and at what stage you were. So in my case, I made sure that I start with the default screen that one would be presented the first time user logs in to this website. So as I mentioned in the presentation earlier, in this screen, you can see a link to guided tour, which is a 4-minute video, or you can actually go to the documentation. So there is a link to that. And of course, there is another link here which talks about teaching with MATLAB. We are not going to go into any of that. We will rather go straight to our purpose here. As I said, the first step in setting up assessment in Grader is to create questions. And therefore, we go down here. So you see courses, but we go down. We'll come to the courses part later. Go to content, and under this content, you can see in my screen 2 collections. One is titled Demo Questions. The other is titled Process Dynamics and Control, which is a course that I was teaching in the immediate semester that just ended. All right. So you can add a collection if you wish. And if you click on this add collection, you will be presented with this dialog. And you can write your title, and within the collection, you can again have group of questions. So for example, if I look at process dynamics and control, it's a big course. So that's a collection. I'm going to create questions pertaining to that course. Again, I can arrange questions for that particular topic here. Sorry for using the term course, but for that collection of questions under process dynamics and control, I may have subtopics such as modeling, designing a controller, assessing the performance of a controller, and so on. So what I'm going to show you here is what happens when you type in a name. So let me type here trial collection. Okay. And you can have a group here, let's say numerical integration. Maybe you want to create a lot of questions pertaining to numerical integration under a large collection called trial collection, or we can choose a different name here. We can write here computational techniques. So I do this, and as you can see, I'm presented with this screen here. So numerical integration is the topic under the larger collection of computational techniques. And then you can add problems to this. So for example, here you can go and add a problem. So let's do that. And whenever you click on add problem, you will be presented with this screen. So you can start with a blank problem. That is, essentially you can create your own problem that you want to set up. It could be a script-based or a function-based problem, or you could draw from the sample problems that MathWorks has created, which again has been arranged topically for you. So for instance, I can go to numerical methods because that is the topic under which I'm going to set up a question, right? So I choose numerical methods here. And within this numerical methods, I have 10 different problems that are showing up. Right? For example, here, let us say I'm interested in numerical quadrature. Essentially, this has got to do with numerical integration, and I can choose to borrow this question here that tests the learner on the Simpson's method of integration, numerical integration. So I can straight away click on copy. And when I do that, the problem has been copied into the collection that I have under the numerical integration. So remember, the collection that I have is computational techniques and a subtopic called numerical integration, into which this problem has been copied. Now, I can give a title, I can give problem description and instructions and so on. But when I hover the mouse here on the field corresponding to title, you can see that there is no access. Now, the reason is given here. The problem, when it is copied, it is always saved as a final version, which you can straight away release to the learners as is without making any modifications if you wish so. So how does a problem look like? It has a description. It has a set of instructions given to the learner. There are some mathematical formulae relevant to the problem that have been provided. You can see that the variables have been described, and there are bulleted lists that you can include, and so on. Then optionally, you can reference to a few files. It could be an Excel file or a MATLAB file that you want the user or the learner to load. Any MATLAB readable file can be loaded here. It could be even an image that MATLAB can read, or an audio file. And it's indicated that it is a function-based problem. That is, the user will be required to write a function which does Simpson's numerical integration using Simpson's rule. And the reference solution is provided here. The learner template is provided here. So let's spend some time here, and then I'll show you how to edit it. Although it has been saved as a final version, when you go down, there is an option that allows you to edit this problem and customize it to your needs. I'm just going through this so that you can understand all the parts of an assessment in MATLAB Grader. So as I was just saying, you have a reference solution, and then you have a learner template. The reference solution here is what the course faculty or the person who is setting up the question would have written. And everything has been written very nicely here, commented, and all the variables have been assigned. That is all the variables of interest. And when the learner logs in, the learner obviously doesn't see this reference solution and rather sees a template like this. And you can see here that as a template has been provided. So what this means is when the learner, and then there is a lock button here. So what this means is when the learner logs in, the learner will see this particular, along with the problem description and the files referenced, the learner will see this code already written for him or her, right? Now, the lock button here essentially means the learner will not be allowed to change this line. So you definitely want this line to be in the code that the user will write. So let me actually show you how this problem looks when a learner logs in so that you understand better what I'm saying. So here is a learner preview. This is what the learner sees. The learner sees the description, right? Everything, all the necessary information, and goes down, reads the questions as to what should be answered, the hints, everything. And then comes to the part where the user has to write a code. And the user is being cautioned that the user has to write a function here and not a script. As you can see, when I click here, now I'm in the learner mode. I cannot really edit this part. So how much ever I try, I will not be able to because it has been locked. What is editable is this portion here. And this is where the user writes the code and finally returns this variable here. Now the learner is also provided with a code, sample code as to how to call the function. Now this is more of a helping hand. It is not mandatory, it's optional. So this is like a test case you're providing. You're helping the learner to test the function before it is tested on some other data set or some other problem that you are going to provide. So this is the function that needs to be integrated. That is the first line. All right. And these are the settings of the Simpson's rule. And then the function along with the settings of the Simpson's rule are passed on to the function that the user writes. And remember, in locking this line, we have essentially also locked the name of the function, right? As well as the syntax, that is the input arguments and the output arguments. So the user will run this test code and see if everything is working out fine. And that is what the user is going to do. He's going to run the function here, he or she. So I can click on run function and see what happens. So it says that there is an error. Now, obviously the error is because the user has not written the function and the variable q has not been assigned. So let us complete. So we are not going to write the complete code here. Let us assign some value to this variable q, right? So that the code is complete. So let's say we assign some value arbitrarily. Obviously, this is not correct. Ideally, one should write the code corresponding to the Simpson's rule. Now we can run the function again. When you do this, let us see what happens to that. So you get q equals 3. Now it is up to the learner to verify. At this point, the learner should compare this value here with the analytical solution that is obtained by integrating 4x cube. Right? Now, that is something that I will skip, but hopefully you understood what that code is essentially helping, and that is, it is optional. The actual assessment begins here. This is what the learner is going to see. Now, let me take you back to the instructor's view so that you can understand how the assessment has been set up. So let's scroll down, and I'm taking you to the assessment here. There are essentially 4 assessment questions that have been drafted for this particular problem. The first one is to check for a correct result using the test case provided, right? So here you can click on this button, and this is like a pre-test. So it's the same code that you have provided, and here you are actually providing the correct solution. So earlier we wrote q equals 3, right? Whereas the correct answer is 1. So when the user runs this particular test, he or she will get a wrong answer. And I'll show you that. I'll take you back to the learner's view on that. So in this MATLAB code, so what you're doing essentially here is you are writing a MATLAB code to run the assessment, but you can choose something else as well. You can directly compare variables. This particular command here compares the value of the variable returned by the user with the correct one. And obviously, sometimes what happens is in comparing variables, they may not match exactly. So you want to see if the answer matches up to certain tolerance, and that tolerance is specified here. And the message that you want to print out when the tolerance is not met, that is when the answer is different from the correct one, beyond the tolerance, you want to send a message to the user that, or display a message saying that the value of the quadrature is incorrect, right? And that you indicate here. Now at this point, let me also show you how to take this into edit mode. As I said earlier, when you copy a question, it is in the final mode and it is in a non-editable mode. In order to edit what you have copied, including the assessment and problem description, click on set to draft, which is at the right bottom corner here, and which will bring up this message for you. Click on OK, right? And now you can edit any of the content here. For example, you can edit the title, or you can edit the problem description or the files referenced and so on. So you can edit any of the things that you want. So let's go to the assessment part here and see what constitutes assessment. So as you can see, there is this drop down menu here for the assessment method, whether you want to do a correct or incorrect or a weighted one. So there are two options, in the sense that when you choose correct or incorrect, every question will essentially compare the value of the variable to the one that is given in the solution, and it's like a 1 or 0 grade that you will give out. On the other hand, if you choose a weighted one, then you can adjust the relative weight here. So for example, here there is a pre-test. So let me take focus on the first question here, which is asking the which is going to assess the user's answer for a correct result for a test case that is being provided. Let me actually click on this button here, which will show you the test case. It is essentially testing the output of the user written code for a function that we have seen earlier. And the correct answer is given here, right? So essentially it is integrating 4x cube between 0 and 1, and the correct answer is being provided here. Now, let me show what is being here. Let me show you what this relative weight does. So if I change the relative weight to 1, then what this means is that I'm assigning some marks to this. If I change it back to 0, essentially it means that I'm not going to assign any mark to this. Because we are in the weighted one here, when I choose the relative weight as 1, what it does is it will look at the weight that you have assigned to each of the questions and then distribute marks accordingly, so that the total marks add up to 100%, the total marks for all questions. So let me show you that here quickly. For every question, the relative weight has been assigned 0, which means that, in fact, the student doesn't get any marks for answering these questions. And that's okay, because you may be setting up this problem only for the student to see whether a correct or an incorrect mark has been, answer has been obtained. And there is no evaluation per se. It is only for the user to understand whether he or she has understood the concept. On the other hand, if this question is being set up for an evaluation in an assignment, then you want to award some marks. And again, within the 4 questions that you have, you may want to award marks only for certain questions, while the other questions are only for pre-test, like the first one here. So typically for pre-test, we don't award any marks. Whereas for another question where again you're checking for a correct result, but using some other input. Let me actually show you here. Now the function is something else. So this is a different function from the one that you have used in the test case. For this, you want to award a mark if the user gets the correct answer. So for that, you change the relative weight from 0 to 1. Okay. Now, what does this 100% essentially mean? Now, that's understood when you look at the relative weight column here. There is no other question that is being awarded mark except for the test 2. So if the user scores if the user gets the answer correct to this question, the user gets 100% on the overall problem, right? And then you can also award some marks to see that a loop has not been used. So I told you, right? These are certain checks that you may want to incorporate to make sure that the user is not directly assigning some value. In fact, the test case itself will take care of that. But maybe you want to give some credit to the user for not using a loop. For this, you can actually write a function like this, assess function absence. Remember, I said that you can test the code for the presence or the absence of a function. And when it comes to loops, one of the standard loops function, one of the standard functions that is used for looping in MATLAB is for, but there is also while. So essentially, you want to rule out that the user has not used the for and while, and you can use this code to assess the absence of the usage of for or while. So you understand the benefit of going through a sample problem like this, so that you know how to set up your problem in similar situations. Okay, so let us say the user has not used the loop and you want to award some marks for that, and you want to give a weightage of 1. Now what this means is that the user now or the learner gets 50% marks for not using the for loop, but that you may consider pretty high. You don't want to give so much credit to the learner, so you increase the relative weight for the other test here, so that there is more weightage to getting correct answer and less weightage to not using the loop, right? So you hopefully now you understand what this relative weight essentially does. It essentially rearranges the score based on the weights that you have given, so that the total score sums up to 100%. All right. So the way we have set up essentially is that there are 4 questions associated with this problem. 2 of them are not awarded any marks, even if the user gets correct answer. Whereas the remaining 2 here have certain score associated with it, with test 2 being given more weightage than test 3. Now, let us say we are happy with this and we want to save this as a draft. Alternatively, you may also want to award a certain marks or give credit to the user for not using a built-in quadrature function. Now, that's very important, because the purpose of this problem is to test whether the user can write his or her own function to solve the problem. Therefore, you may want to give credit to the user for not using any of the built-in functions. And when you do that, you can see now that the marks have been rearranged, redistributed. So the user gets 50% of the mark for this problem for getting the correct answer, 25% for not using loops, and another 25% for not using MATLAB's built-in function. You can add more assessments if you wish, but now let us say we are happy with this. Let's move on. And before you save as final, you can validate the reference solution, and you should do it. That's extremely important, because your reference solution should work before you release the problem to the learner. So click on validate reference solution. And this may take some time depending on the complexity of the problem. So this shows that our reference solution is correct. So the reference solution has passed all the assessment tests. This is an extremely important check. You should go through this step before you release it to the learner. Of course, saving as final doesn't mean it's released to the learner, but it is ready to be released to the students. So now you can click on save as final. And that's it. So the problem has now been added. Everything is set, and it is available under the computational techniques numerical integration topic. Now, the next step is to set up a course or to create a course and release it to the learners. I'll go through these 2 steps for you very quickly. So you go back, right, and click on courses and content. in order to create a course. So we have now, as you can see, the computational techniques collection, under which we have a problem set up under the numerical integration topic. So let's now go to the add course. I'm going to do this. I already have 2 courses under my account. One was FDB demos, another was signal processing. But I'm going to create another course for this demonstration. So let us call this as a demo course. And you can set the time zone. Let's say now we are in the Indian time zone, so which means that we are 5.5 hours ahead of GMT. Choose that, and you can choose the start date. Let us say today, and let's say we are going to end this course on Friday. Then we are required to choose the MATLAB products that are going to be needed for running the code. Right? In this case, simple MATLAB should be sufficient. But on many other occasions, you may have to choose specific toolboxes such as curve fitting toolbox or control systems or signal processing toolbox and so on. That depends on what routines you expect the user to use. This is a simple problem that we worked out. But suppose I'm doing a parameter estimation and I'm using some routines related to optimization. Then I may have to add the curve fitting toolbox and the optimization toolbox. Moreover, if I'm fitting, let us say, data to a dynamical model, and my reference solution requires me to run a linear time invariant system, simulate an LTI system, then I may have to add the control systems toolbox and another toolbox as well. So that depends entirely on the problem that you're going to solve. So right now, I'm not going to select any product per se. You can always type in a product here and check for product dependencies. Some of the toolboxes may require another set of toolboxes to be loaded. Now, this is something that I hope MathWorks is working on, to automatically select the products based on what you have written so that the user doesn't have to go through this. Now, the course can be given a description. You can say that this course aims to demonstrate MATLAB grader for beginners. That's the course description. You can add more to it. And you save. So your course is now being created. And then we are just 2 steps away, setting up an assignment and then releasing it to the learners. So now we have this course, right? And what we need to do is we need to add an assignment. And you can see on the left panel, add assignment. So let's add an assignment here. And let's call this as an assignment 1. And when you want the assignment to be visible. So let us say we want the assignment to be visible starting today itself, let us say. And let's say it is due in 2 days' time, 29. Now, this is where you specify here, after you set the start and end date for the assignment, you set the options of unlimited or limited attempts to the learner. As I said earlier in my presentation, if it's for teaching purposes, purely teaching purposes, then you can set the number of attempts to unlimited. But if it is for evaluation purposes, which is what we set up the assignment for, you can say that the user is allowed 2 attempts, right? And you can say this assignment is based on the topic of numerical integration that you just perhaps finished teaching, or you've just taught it last week. Okay, so we are done with setting up the assignment. That's about it. And now we add problems to this assignment. Of course, I'm only going to add 1 problem, but the procedure is the same for adding more problems. It clearly says you currently have no problems for this assignment. So let's add a problem now. And it says it's an untitled problem. So here, when you add a problem, it's the same interface that you are provided with when you are adding questions to your question bank. Remember, we went through that exercise just a few minutes ago. So here, I can go straight to my computational techniques collection that I have, right? And choose the problem that I have set up. And I can simply copy it. Now, when I copy, as I said, the problem description, everything gets copied to the current assignment. And you can further customize once it is copied. So you may have set up the problem with the assessment in a particular way in your question bank, but maybe for this particular assignment, you want to set it up differently, right? But if you don't want to do that, you just want to use the question as is, including the assessment, then you are ready to go. So you can say that's it. So you don't even have to validate reference solution, but maybe it's a good idea to validate it just to doubly make sure that we are not faced with an embarrassment after releasing the problem. So that's it. So reference solution works. So we are not now in a mood to edit this. We are ready to release this problem to the learners. So we are done. If you want to discard this problem and choose another one, you can choose a different problem by clicking here on the right side where I'm showing my cursor. So we are ready to go now. So we go back to the courses and manage people. Right? So you can see under the demo course, under assignment 1 for that course, this particular problem has been added. But an assignment can consist of obviously more than one problem. When you add another problem, it will show up naturally in the list here under assignment 1. So let's go and now do the final step of managing people, enrolling learners into this. Okay, so now you have the option of enrolling a learner or an instructor. Suppose you are co-teaching this course with another instructor. You can invite the instructor, wherein the instructor will have all the privileges that you have, edit the problem, and so on. Alternatively, you can choose learner here, and that's what I'm going to do, which is usually what you eventually do. And now you enter comma separated email addresses, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually add 2 email addresses. These 2 are of my TAs for a particular course. And when I click on enroll, what happens is that emails will go out to this 2 students. And this happens only once. That is, you don't have to keep adding these email addresses for every assignment that you do. These email addresses are for the course and not for the assignment. So once I click on enroll, my TAs will receive emails saying that they have been enrolled in this course. And when they log in with their email addresses, as you have noticed, I've used IITM email addresses. My TAs also have other email addresses, their own personal ones. But if I use that, there is a problem. There could be a problem because their MathWorks account may not be linked to that. So you want to use email addresses of the students such that they are linked to their respective MathWorks account. So you can see here, it says there are 2 learners, and these are the names of these 2 email addresses, and it is automatically recognized them because these 2 email addresses are associated with their respective MathWorks account. And it shows there are no instructors, co-instructors. Essentially, instructor 0 doesn't mean that you are not having an access. These instructors essentially means co-instructors. So we are done. And now all we have to do is we will have to wait for the TAs or the students in this case, to work out the problem that you have given out and then monitor the progress or analyze the solution. That is what is the final thing. Obviously, I'm not going to do that now, but hopefully this procedure is now clear. You set up questions, as many as you want, a question bank under a certain collection and arranged topically. Then the next step is to create a course. Just takes about less than a minute to do that. And then add assignment and draw problems from a question bank, populate your assignment, and then manage people. Of course, you can manage people even before you add the assignment. They don't have to be in that order necessarily. I just went in that order. So what I am going to end this presentation with is for a course that I have already created. Again, that's kind of a demo course that I have already created, and where I have the same two students work out the problem that I have given. So this is under FDP demos. I'm going to show you how the solutions look like when they are submitted by the students. And this is the last step of this presentation. So under this course, FDP demo, I had set up an assignment, and under this assignment, I had this problem given out to the students, where the students are required to fit what we call as a first order plus time delay model. So it's essentially a first order delayed differential equation, except that I've written this in the Laplace domain. And the objective of this problem, or the question that is being asked, is to estimate the parameters Kp, tau p, and delay given data. So here, this transfer function essentially is a model relating to the input and output of a system. A simple first order plus time delay system would be a liquid level system or a buffer system. And this model essentially would relate the inlet flow to the liquid level with a sensor delay or with a measurement delay. And the user is being provided with what we call as step response data. A step change is introduced in the flow rate, and the response of the liquid level is measured. Both this data is provided to the user. From the given data, the learner is required to estimate the parameters Kp, tau p, and delay. To make the problem simpler, I have set the value of delay so that they have to estimate only two parameters, but you can really make the problem more complex. Now, if you look at the learner preview for this, this is what the learner is going to see. The learner is supposed to write a script. So in this case, it's not a function-based one. The learner will write a code. The data has been provided in a mat file, which is already uploaded at the time of setting up the question. And this particular thing is locked because this is the first inevitable step that the user has to do to load the data. Once the data is loaded, the user will work, or the learner will work with these two variables, tvec, which contains the timestamps at which the response was measured, and yres, which is the response to the step input in the flow rate. And the requirement is that the user should use, as mentioned in the problem description, LSQ curve fit. That is mandatory, right? Now, accordingly, I have set up the assessment here. So there are 4 questions that I have set up. This is the first one here. This is a pre-test. Have you assumed the value of D correctly? The problem is asking the student or the learner to assume the value of D to be 2. And if the user doesn't do that, then essentially this is a pre-test. The user better not proceed with the remaining assessments, right? Then we have the remaining 3 assessments. Is Kp being estimated correctly, which is what we call as a gain? Is the time constant being estimated correctly, which is what the time constant is denoted by tau? And then we have an assessment to check the usage of the function LSQ curve fit. Earlier, in the earlier example, we prohibited the use of built-in functions and loops. The problem is the flipped one here. We are making it mandatory that LSQ curve fit should be used. So the user goes through all of this and then sees what the score is, right? So in this case, there is no code written by the learner yet. Remember, this is a learner preview. But suppose I type here the mandatory value of D equals 2. This is a script because I at least want to make sure as a learner that I pass the pretest, and I run the script here as a learner. This is the output that I see. I remove the semicolon so that the output can be echoed. And now I can submit this. Now, when I submit this, what happens is, obviously, I have not written anything to estimate KP and tau p. Therefore, I will not get any marks on these three assessments, but I have passed the pretest correctly. So hopefully you got the gist of it, right? Now let's go back to the instructor's mode, right? This is what is a learner's preview. So I click on this. This is the problem. And the important thing which I want to end with, which is why we are also looking at this, is to see the solution submitted by the user. Now, beneath the problem statement here, you see a color bar, which essentially shows how many of them has solved the problem correctly versus how many of them has solved incorrectly. There are two users here. It turns out that one of my students solved the problem correctly and the other student solved the problem incorrectly, obviously, deliberately, of course. So you see a 50-50 color code here, green and red. And in order to see the solution submitted by the user, you click on Learner Solutions. Now, at this point, I also want to say that ideally, you should also see what is known as the learner analytics. Now, unfortunately, the way the grader has been set up by MathWorks for IIT Madras, at the moment, the learner analytics is not visible, but I have spoken to MathWorks and they will make it available very soon. So let's click on the learner solutions and see what solutions have been submitted and how many times a particular user has submitted, because I have kept the number of attempts to unlimited. Now, when you click on learner solutions, you will be presented with two different views. You have the option of choosing between map view and list view. I'm only going to go over the list view, and you can see that it shows the 11 solutions that were these are all the solutions submitted by the user, and it shows how many attempts a particular user has made. So for example, this particular student has made 11 attempts, and in each attempt, whether she got it right or not is indicated in the green tick marks here. Obviously, these are all trials, so they should not be used to gauge the student per se. So for example, in the 6th attempt, she got only 2 right and of the 4, whereas in the 11th and the 12th attempt, she got all the 4 right. Now, on the other hand, the other TA had 1 attempt here, so 0-4 test pass. So the user made 1 attempt here, the first attempt, solution 1, and did not pass any of the assessments correctly, even the pre-test. So that is what it says. Okay, and that was the case even with the other student. So it's a very nice way of seeing how the user has progressed in learning the concept and eventually has managed to get all the questions right. But of course, in an evaluation mode, you may not want to give this many attempts. You give 2 attempts, then the user is of course more alert and cautious. And you can, with the help of learner analytics, see how many of them got right, how many of them got wrong in a pie chart, as a bar chart, so many other pieces of information that you can gather. All right, so in the interest of time, I will now bring the demonstration to a close. In this demonstration, we have seen how to set up problems in the question bank, and then how to create a course, and then enroll people to that course, and within that course, how to create an assignment and add problems, and finally monitor or examine the solution submitted by the users according to the number of attempts or that you have set, whether unlimited or limited, and that there is an option of going deeper into the analytics with the learner analytics provided by the grader. So hopefully you found this demonstration very useful. I just want to reiterate that it is possible to randomize. For example, here I could have given different data sets to each student so that I don't load a particular data set, fixed data set for all the students. I can generate data on the fly, and every time I generate data, I have some randomization there so that each user sees a different data, and therefore the answers will never be the same. But of course, the procedure can be the same. So to a certain extent, you can control the randomization part, but beyond a certain point, certain things may be common to all the students. And of course, how you want to play around with it depends on the course and the size of the class and so on. All right. So if you have any questions, please feel free to write to us, and I will be very happy to answer those questions. Thank you and enjoy MATLAB Grader.